Any women's movement, they will talk about the domestic violence. But for women, Dalit women, it was water, it's wages, it's physical safety. It's a much, much more basic point that you're talking about. And so domestic violence was something that Dalit women could take in their stride, but in the hierarchy, definitely it was not as high in our concern. So all these other issues, which are basically issues of right to life and livelihood, they were not taken up. So all of us lost out. Obviously, there's a whole system in place which creates incidents like Hathras. Hathras is just one in a series that has happened. And after Hathras, there have been a series of some more gang rapes that happened. Even in 1 or 2 days later, then another one a few days later. It's not a one-off case. The Nirbhaya case was a particularly severe one, but in one sense, it was a one-off case. The Hathras case has a caste element to it, which was not really there in the Nirbhaya case, the Jyoti Singh case. Incidents like Hathras keep happening because of a certain systemic facilitation of its going on. It has taken us 25 years or more of talking about the need for center staging, bringing the issues of Dalit women's concerns to the center stage in the women's movement. It really took us this long. Because I remember in 1995 when the Beijing conference mobilizations were happening in India and I was a part of it, the National Federation of Dalit Women came into being. At that stage itself, there was an attempt at a dialogue and at bringing forward the idea that Dalit women's concerns need to be addressed in a different way. But I think mainstream feminists were not willing to take it on at that point. One is that I felt that as far as I was concerned, I'm saying so boldly at this stage in my life, I felt that mainstream women's movement lost out an opportunity to be a real powerful change agent in society by not taking on our concerns 25 years ago. And on the other hand, they have continued to be enablers because they said that their analysis was that, yes, we accept Dalit women's issues, we are articulating them along with other women's issues, but the fact is that by not addressing it in the way they should have, mainstream women's movements lost out on the politics of it. And so in that sense, they have been enablers of this system to persist. Because domestic violence was considered their biggest concern. Any women's movement, they will talk about the domestic violence. But for women, Dalit women, it was water, it's wages, it's physical safety. It's a much, much more basic point that you're talking about. And so domestic violence was something that Dalit women could take in their stride, but in the hierarchy, definitely it was not as high in our concern. So all these other issues, which are basically issues of right to life and livelihood, they were not taken up. So all of us lost out. I think all of us lost out. Okay, so this is as far as the women's movement is concerned. On the other hand, the women's movement has shaped a lot of laws. Though we are happy about the achievements of legal rights for women, the way it was taken up and successfully handed over. For instance, the amendment of the rape law, the Mathura rape case, the Bhanwari Devi's case ultimately resulting in the Shaka judgment and later on the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. But you see, ultimately, though Mathura herself was an Adivasi girl, minor girl in fact, and the laws that came in no way benefited either Bhanwari Devi and her sisters, nor Mathura and her sisters. They benefited the mainstream, the minority of women to whom these laws apply in real life. Because even the Prevention of Atrocities Act, which has some very strong provisions to protect Dalit women, we are not able to access those provisions because the police don't want to implement it. So that brings me to the next issue. What happens next? I feel that we really need to think about how we can make the prosecution of rape, particularly of Dalit women, to be addressed differently by the administration and by the courts.